Number 5. Jamie Santos. In 1991, 27-year-old Jamie Santos of Wheeling, Illinois, was working as an exotic dancer. She wanted to get into another field of work, but the appeal of being her own boss and the pay kept her working as a dancer. Santos lived in a house just down the road from her family, and they shared a close relationship. On the night of October 27th, Santos wasn't feeling well, so she didn't work that night. The next day, at 11:31 a.m., the following call came into 911.
911, Bugs. Yeah. Get an ambulance and push someone to 1765 Stonehenge Court in Wheeling immediately. There's one young woman there who's not breathing. She's turning blue. All right, hold on just a minute, all right? Because this is Buffalo Grove. Just a minute. That's okay. Hold on just a minute, okay? I'm going to try and transfer you. Hold on a second. Hello? Yeah. 65. All right, hold on just a minute. No. There's no time. Wheeling Police, Kelly. Yeah, get someone to 1765 Stonehenge Court in Wheeling. Immediately, there's a young woman there who's not breathing. She's turning blue. 1765 Stonehenge? Stonehenge. Heads like a bush. Okay, in Wheeling? Yeah. What phone are you calling from? Well, I don't know. It's a public phone. All right, Wheeling, can you hear me? This is Buffalo Grove 911. Yeah, I can barely hear you. All right, he's calling from an address in Buffalo Grove. Yeah. All right, when were you at that house, sir? Right. Sir.
5 minutes later, paramedics arrived at the address and found the door to the house closed but not locked. Inside the house, they found Santos on the floor of the bedroom. She was fully dressed, but she wasn't breathing. She was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. Santos was pronounced dead a short time later. An autopsy showed that she had been suffocated to death with a pillow. There was some bruising on her face and her hands, but there were no other injuries on her body. Notably, she had not been sexually assaulted. The police traced the 911 call, and it came from a payphone outside of a liquor store, not far from Santos's house. One interesting thing to note is that the caller knew Santos's exact address. Specifically, he knew that she lived on Stonehenge and not Stonehenge, like the prehistoric monument in Wiltshire, England. Cheryl Lavin, a reporter with the Chicago Tribune, points out that this is unusual. Out of all your friends and family, how many of their exact addresses do you know? You may know how to get to their home, but you may not know a lot of people's specific address. Yet, the 911 caller knew exactly where Santos lived. The police aren't sure if the caller was a witness to the murder or the killer himself. They said that they are leaning towards the caller being a witness, because why would the killer call 911? A big question facing the police in the murder investigation was what was the motive. The police think that Santos knew her killer and she let him into the apartment. Based purely on speculation, they think that the killer may have come on to her and she rejected him, so he snapped. Another possible motive was robbery. Since Santos worked as an exotic dancer and was paid in cash, she kept some money in the house. The problem was that the police didn't know how much money was in the house before the murder, so it was tough to determine if anything was stolen. The police were able to pull fingerprints from the crime scene, but they have not found a match. There have been several suspects over the years, but they have all been cleared and the case is cold. The police and the Santos family are hoping that the person who made the 911 call will come forward and maybe he'll be able to shed some light on who killed Jamie Santos. Number 4. Connie Minchaca. In 1978, 17-year-old Connie Minchaca was living with her father in Napa, California. On the evening of June 9th, Connie had plans to go to a party. In the late afternoon, a family friend drove her to a Western clothing store where she was supposed to meet a friend. But where she went after that is a mystery to this day. She didn't make it to the party or return home. The police were called, but they didn't take the case too seriously because of Connie's recent behavior. Connie, like many teenagers, had a bit of a rebellious streak. At the time of her disappearance, She was dating a 25-year-old man, and her parents didn't approve of the relationship. Their disapproval didn't stop her from seeing him, though. She would sneak out of the house at night and walk to his house. Each time her family found the bed empty, they would call the police, who would pick her up and bring her home. Connie also had a history of running away. In the first half of 1978, there were 6 recorded times that she ran away, so the police just assumed that Connie chose to disappear. Her parents were adamant that her disappearance wasn't self-imposed. They pointed out that Connie didn't take any of her personal belongings with her. They also said that on the day that Connie disappeared, she wasn't angry like the other times she ran away. In fact, she was in a good mood and she was excited to go to the party that night. The police didn't take the parents' plea seriously, and the case didn't get any media attention. Then, in the weeks that followed, Connie's mother received several disturbing phone calls. Sometimes it was a man on the phone, while other times it was a woman. In each call, they claimed to know what happened to Connie. On some calls, they would say she had been kidnapped, while on other calls, they would say that she had been murdered. The calls got to be so bad that Connie's mother had a nervous breakdown. The callers were never identified, and it's unclear if they were responsible for Connie's disappearance or if it was just a sick prank. However, it's important to point out that Connie's disappearance didn't garner any media attention. Connie's father said that his next-door neighbor didn't even know about the disappearance. Yet, the man and the woman called Connie's mother to harass her about her daughter's disappearance. If they weren't involved with Connie's disappearance, then how did they know she was missing? In 2001, Connie's mother submitted a DNA sample to a federal database for missing children, hoping that it would give them some answers to Connie's whereabouts. Unfortunately, it didn't provide them with any answers. The police do not believe that after all this time that Connie is still alive, but they do not know the location of the remains or who is responsible for her death, and the case is currently cold. Number 3. Henry McCabe. On September 6, 2015, Henry McCabe of Mounds View, Minnesota, was hanging out with some friends, which included a man named William Kennedy. That night, they went to a club in Spring Lake Park, and they left before it closed. Kennedy said that Henry wanted to be dropped off at the Super America gas station near the town of Fridley, which was in the opposite direction of Mounds View. Kennedy said that he dropped off Henry at the gas station at 2 a.m. At 2:23 a.m., Henry's wife of 11 years, Katrina McVeigh, received a call from his cell phone. She was in California at the time, and she answered the call. She said that she heard Henry screaming, and he said that he had been shot. During the call, Katrina dialed in Henry's brother, and the call went to his voicemail. The full voicemail cannot be found online, but it is about 2 minutes long, and it contains very little talking. Instead, it is mostly weird sounds. The following is just some of the sounds that can be heard on the voicemail. At the end of the voicemail, there are a few moments of silence before someone, quite possibly Henry, says "stop it," and then the voicemail abruptly ends. When Henry didn't show up for work, the police were notified. The police interviewed William Kennedy and some other friends that Henry was with that night. For reasons that weren't made clear, one friend was in possession of Henry's wallet, and Kennedy had his keys. Kennedy said that he dropped off Henry at the Super America gas station, but when they checked the gas station surveillance footage, they saw no trace of Kennedy or Henry. Instead, they found video of Kennedy dropping him off at a different gas station, a Holiday gas station, which is about 3 miles south of the Super America gas station and about 4.5 miles away from Mounds View. They also checked the area where Henry's phone last pinged off a tower, and it was in the New Brighton area, which is about 2 miles away from the gas station where he was dropped off. For 2 months, the police, Henry's family, and volunteers searched for him. Then, on November 2, 2015, his body was found in Rush Lake in New Brighton. In that last phone call, before Corrine dialed in Henry's brother and got his voicemail, she said that Henry stated that he had been shot, but there were no gunshot wounds on Henry's body. Instead, the medical examiner determined that Henry drowned, but he is unsure if it was an accident or a homicide. Rush Lake is just over 4 miles from the gas station where he was dropped off. If Henry was heading home from the gas station to Mounds View, he probably would not have gone past Rush Lake. So why was Henry near Rush Lake, and how did he get there? If he walked all the way to Rush Lake, it would have taken him over an hour. But his wife got the distressing phone call at 2:23, which is about 23 minutes after he was dropped off at the gas station. That would suggest that someone drove him there, but who? Unfortunately, this question, like many other questions in this case, has yet to be answered. Henry's family thinks that the phone call and the fact that his body was found so far from where he was last seen indicates that he met with foul play. They are hoping that someone will come forward and shed some light on what happened in the last hour of Henry McCabe's life. Number 2. Tracey Ann Patient. On the night of January 30th, 1976, 13-year-old Tracey Ann Patient, who lived in Henderson, which is a suburb of Auckland, New Zealand, went to visit a friend. Tracey Ann and her friend spent most of the night gossiping about boys, and Tracey Ann showed her friend the signet ring that her boyfriend had given her. Around 9 p.m., Tracey Ann called her mother and told her that she would be home in half an hour. Tracey Ann and her friend started walking to Tracey Ann's house, which was about a mile away. Her friend said goodbye at the intersection where the local police station was located, and she walked back home. When Tracey Ann didn't make it home by 10 o'clock, her family started to search for her. The next morning, the police were searching the neighborhood for Tracey Ann. Her body was found 12 hours after she went missing, less than 7 miles away from her house. Her body had been dumped at the edge of a regional park. She had been strangled to death with her pantyhose. Someone had wrapped the pantyhose around her neck and then tightened it with a stick. One item that was missing was the signet ring that her boyfriend had given her. The murder shocked the people of Henderson, and the citizens were hoping that the killer would be arrested quickly. The problem was that the police didn't have much in the way of evidence. There was a man seen in the area where Tracey Ann was kidnapped, and shortly before Tracey Ann was kidnapped, he was seen bothering 3 girls. They were also looking for the driver of a cream or white 1967 Ford Cortina. Hoping to generate any type of lead, they set up a telephone hotline. Tips poured into the hotline, and nearly all of them were useless. Then, in November 1978, 22 months after the murder, the hotline got a call from a mysterious man. He said that in a garbage can beside a pharmacy in Avondale, which is another suburb of Auckland, they would find Tracey Ann's signet ring. He also said that the numbers 126040 are somehow connected to Tracey Ann's murder. Finally, he said that he would call again. The police went to the pharmacy, and in the garbage can they found a signet ring. They checked with the boy who gave Tracey Ann the ring, and he said it was the same ring. Unfortunately, the man didn't stay true to his word, and he never called again. Over the past 40 years, there have been over 850 suspects, and tips still sporadically come into the police, including theories as to what the numbers 126040 mean, but not much progress has been made on the case in the past 4 decades, and the case is currently cold. Number 1. Katrina McVeigh. Life wasn't easy for 27-year-old Katrina McVeigh of Woonsocket, Rhode Island. In 1992, she had 3 small children, but she didn't have custody of any of them, and they lived with her parents. She also had just escaped an abusive relationship with her husband, Richard McVeigh. In May 1992, Katrina was on drugs, and she was working as a prostitute. On May 3rd, Katrina was seen getting into a car, and then she vanished. Due to her lifestyle, her family didn't realize that she was missing until 6 weeks later, and then they filed a police report. The obvious suspect in Katrina's disappearance was her estranged husband, Richard McVeigh. He supposedly called Katrina's mother and told her that she was buried beside the Blackstone River. This prompted Katrina's brother to search the banks of the river, and he thought that he found the shirt that she was wearing when she went missing, but he couldn't be certain. After several searches of the riverbanks, neither he nor the police found any other evidence of Katrina. Then, a short time later, Katrina's mother was in a Bible study group, and also in attendance was Richard McVeigh. During the meeting, someone called Katrina's mother and left a message for her. The caller bluntly said, "You will never find her." Sadly, the mysterious caller has been proven right so far because Katrina's body has never been found. Richard McVeigh was interviewed by the police, and he denied killing Katrina and says that he didn't call her mother. He said that Katrina's mother hated him and she blamed him for all her daughter's problems. Without any physical evidence, Richard McVeigh was never charged in the disappearance of his wife. However, Richard McVeigh wasn't the only person of interest in the case. Between late 1989 or early 1990 and June 2001, there are 5 other unsolved murders of women who lived in Woonsocket, which is a city with a population of about 43,000 people. The first victim, who has never been identified, was pulled from the Blackstone River on January 31, 1990. The body had been in the water for at least 4 weeks. Her body was so badly decomposed that it was hard to distinguish many of her features. The medical examiner thought that she was African American and she was probably 17 or 18 years old. The most likely cause of death was a blow to the head that fractured her skull. Then, between November 1990 and March 1991, 2 sex workers, 18-year-old Christine Miller and 23-year-old Wendy Madden, were strangled to death. Jump ahead 3 years to March 17, 1994, and 28-year-old Megan Paul was found stabbed to death in her apartment in Woonsocket. Finally, 31-year-old Cindy Roberts, who also was a drug addict and worked as a prostitute, was reported missing on July 4, 2001 from Woonsocket. Her skeletal remains were found 16 months later in a wooded area near Lincoln, Rhode Island, which is about 10 miles away from Woonsocket. All 5 of the murders, like that of Katrina McVeigh, are unsolved today, and it's unknown if any of them are connected. Then, between 2003 and 2004, there was another string of murders in Woonsocket. 3 sex workers were all strangled to death, and then they were dismembered. Just like Katrina McVeigh, 2 of the victims' remains were never found. The difference between these 3 murders and the other 6 is that this time, the killer was caught and he confessed. His name is Jeffrey Mailhot. Mailhot was convicted of the 3 murders in 2006, and he was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison. When the original series of murders began in December 1989 or January 1990, Mailhot would have been 19 years old. Mailhot has been questioned in the murders of the other 6 women, but he has never been charged. The murders of the 6 women in Woonsocket are currently cold, and unless someone comes forward, it is likely to stay that way. Thanks a lot for watching this week's video. We also just want to say a special thank you to Dennis S. for helping us out with the audio this week. It was greatly appreciated. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. We post a new video every Sunday. You can also like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. We may even follow you back. But that is all for this week. Thanks again for watching.